Today on 10 Talks, I'm really excited to welcome Mollie Burns. Mollie, when I met her, was really inspirational. I loved her story. But Mollie is our PCN manager based in Liverpool. And over the past 4 years, Mollie has grown with her primary care network, starting as a care coordinator before progressing into your current leadership role, which is just huge. Mollie's passionate about supporting and empowering others to achieve their professional goals and brings a really fresh perspective as a Gen Z manager. We've just been talking about some of the lingo. I don't think I've quite got it, but I'm nearly there. But Mollie will be sharing how her generation skills and values and ideas are really helping to shape primary care and influence the future of the NHS, and I'm sure connect better with patients as well. So welcome, Mollie. Thanks so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So I would just like to know that obviously as a Gen Z manager who grew up sort of like digitally native, understanding what things are in sort of the tech world, how has your own comfort with technology really shaped the way that you approach patient care, that teamwork, problem solving within primary care?
Yeah, I think obviously growing up with sort of very evolving technology, I went through, so many different things, different tools. It's quite exciting to me. I'm never one to sort of fear new technologies, new sort of ways of working, and I definitely sort of embody that within my role as well. Um, I remember starting in the PCN, and anybody here who's sort of familiar with EMIS will probably also share my thoughts of sort of looking at it and being like, oh, it genuinely, the interface, it looks like it's from the 90s or something. Um, so to me, it was like, oh, okay, maybe we're not sort of up with the times in sort of
Advanced,
healthcare,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
as perhaps like other industries might be. So I think that for me, it's been a challenge, but an exciting challenge to sort of try and find new ways of working and implement these into primary care. I think it's around sort of finding out, you know, why why is this the way it is? Why isn't this working? What tool is there that can help it?
Yeah.
And being very sort of open-minded to trying new things and ultimately just thinking, okay, what's going to be best for the patient at the end of the day? You know, I'm not here, I didn't go into the tech world. I don't necessarily care about having like the best, the flashiest stuff. It's around if there's a tool out there that's going to help our
Yeah.
patients and going to help to bridge some of those gaps, then why not use it?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it's funny, isn't it? Because we can go from like ordering our total online shopping to booking
Hmm.
10 different flights to get across the world. But yeah, sometimes when we get into the NHS or into our own technology and software, it's just nowhere near advanced, is it? Like you say, so it is very stark. When I started, actually the only thing that we had really, we didn't rely on emails, but it was fax machine 21 years ago. And and let me tell you that was really fun. And I'm glad we no longer have them. I think people actually still do have fax machines. But let's talk about values really. So, Gen Z, we know, is this generation that prioritizes flexibility, well-being. Again, from my own experiences, you had to be there 10 minutes before, you had to be there 10 minutes after, you was expected to sit at a desk in a certain office. Looking beyond that traditional sort of like how the way that we've used to work. How do you think those values now that are held by Gen Z have shaped the way that you choose to work and lead within primary care?
Yeah, I think for me, in particular, sort of purpose, flexibility, well-being, they're very much at the core of sort of how I like to work and how I like to lead my team. I think for me, leading with that well-being first approach
Yeah.
is almost sort of the foundation in my eyes of being a manager and being a leader. And I want everyone to sort of feel protected and safe within their work environment to be able to support our patients. I definitely have found it challenging. I think, as you've mentioned, there's quite historically, there's been quite a sort of more rigid view of what being in the workplace is like, and
Yeah.
that sort of blurred boundaries, I guess, with sort of your own personal time and how much energy that you're expected to put into things. And I think it can be, for me, like sort of managing a team who are used to those sort of cultures that are sort of work, work, work until you sort of drop. Being, going to someone and saying, okay, don't check your emails in the evening. Why have you replied to my evening and my email in the evening? Enjoy your time. It's sort of met with a bit of like resistance, I guess, because that's not the way that they're used to working.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's again exciting challenge to sort of overcome and to try and,
Yeah.
rewire how
That
people view.
mindset.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
getting somebody to change that mindset. It is, and absolutely, you're right. We know that those are the effects of burnout, don't we? When people don't take breaks and don't have, think they don't have that permission to do so, or maybe
Hmm.
don't have permission to do so. But
Yeah,
that is
definitely.
so lovely that you've got a
Yeah,
well-being first approach. It's somewhere I think I'd like to work, knowing that my leader, the leader
yeah.
feels that way.
Yeah. And I think it can be quite sort of daunting to other people, particularly if they're not used to that environment, to think about making that shift and leading with that sort of
Yeah,
balance with the well-being, with the flexibility, because, you know, we do need to be realistic at the same time. We work in primary care. You can't just say to everybody, okay, flexible start, come in when you fancy.
yeah. Don't
When
worry
we've
about
got,
it.
yeah, when
Yeah,
we've got phones ringing at 8 a.m. So it's about sort of trying to understand the different ways in which you can be flexible and the different
yeah.
ways in which you can sort of provide more of that well-being first approach that's realistic and makes sense for sort of the patients that we serve.
That's really important. Just while we've got really just a couple of minutes left, one of the things that I'd like to talk to you about, and I think is one of the most important questions, is around the recruitment in primary care. So, as the workforce lead, we know that we've got an aging population within primary care, and I'm thinking about, sort of looking beyond that traditional qualifications like skills, creativity, being digital, community engagement. How do you think we need to rethink recruitment within primary care to meet that
Yeah,
need?
I think, I'm such a champion of looking towards wider values and what people can bring to the team beyond sort of what necessarily might be on a CV. Um, I think for me, I remember sort of vividly interviewing for a member in my team, and she was saying that she didn't have much experience, but was trying to sort of tell me. And I remember sort of looking down and sort of right at the bottom was some volunteering that she did, and it was such a perfect fit for the role that she was doing. It was around working with patients with mental health, people in crisis, being able to triage, and that's what we wanted in our role. And I was like, why haven't you put this sort of higher up? And she was like, well, it wasn't a job. Things like that don't matter. And
Yeah,
I think that we need to, not only push this with our like recruiters, but also just get it out there to people generally that there's so many different ways in which that you can gain experience, whether it's through a job that you might think is completely irrelevant. There's always transferable skills. And I think, that creativity that you mentioned, that really can reflect in engagement and the ways in which we work, pushing sort of the boundaries of what is normal and, the ways of working within the NHS and how actually do we want to break through to patients and get them to engage in different ways and in ways that sort of follows the world in which they live in. It's an evolving world with different, social media, digital, AI even,
mhm.
that in order for us to, be able to keep up with patients to get them to come in, we need to be able to, look to these other tools as well. And I think there are so many different forms of experience that people will have in those areas that aren't necessarily, I've worked 10 years in the
Yeah,
NHS.
yeah, absolutely. Molly, that's just so interesting. We've actually come to 10 minutes. It goes around so fast, doesn't it? So we're going to stop recording, but I have got a couple of questions that I'd like to continue to ask.